undefeated players in this tournament are going to be. And there you see on the left-hand side, Andrew Davis playing Esper Control, kind of his signature deck here on the SCG Tour. And Ethan Gaieski 7-0 with mono red aggro. Who do you like in this matchup, Jerry? Just give me your pick right now.
I mean, it's basically always Esper, and I've been more of a mono red champion in this format, more so than Esper. Esper's obviously a very good deck, and I think Esper got a lot of awesome cards from the new sets. Now I'm kind of on the Esper side of things, but from mono red, Esper always seemed like the tough matchup. They have so much life gain, and your lightning bolts just don't really accomplish a whole lot in the matchup.
Yeah, especially against Andrew's build, because he has 2 Enter the God Eternals in his main deck.
Love it.
He has one in his hand presently. And if that card gets deployed, it is so tough for mono red to win from that point. Here is Thought Erasure. Going to take a look at 4 cards from Ethan Gaieski. 4 good ones, quite frankly. Well, 3 really good ones, 1 medium one.
What's the medium one?
Fanatical Firebrand.
Oh, come on. Powerhouse.
At least in this spot. It certainly is a level below the other 3 cards, I think. What's Davis want to take here?
He's going after the Firebrand.
No, he was not. He's going to take the Pyromancer.
No, that's legit. The Runaway Steamkin just dies to every removal spell in the book while providing no value. So taking the Pyromancer is more of a tempo play. Light up the stage you don't necessarily care about because Gaieski has enough lands at this point. And if all Davis is trying to do is buy time to get to that Enter the God Eternals, I think taking Pyromancer is the correct call.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Sometimes I think about it.
So Davis going to go ahead and pass the turn back to Gaieski. Gaieski takes a draw here. Does he want to power up those Gitu Lava Runners?
I think you kind of do. I think the matchup is grindy enough that you don't necessarily want to lose that Lightning Strike.
Makes sense to me. Let's see if Ethan agrees.
You use it or lose it, man.
All right.
It's also kind of dangerous if your plan is to just deploy like a Runaway Steamkin this turn and they all just get swept up by Cry the Carnarium. But with Davis taking the Pyromancer, I don't think you really have to worry about that as an option.
Ethan is going to go ahead and fire off that Lightning Strike.
It's 5 damage for 2 mana. You can't.
I don't think you can pass that up.
You can't really turn that down. I think it's fine to just deploy the Firebrand this turn, get in as much damage as possible.
Ethan agrees.
Like I said, I don't think you can really put Davis on Cry of the Carnarium in this spot. So that means that your light up the stage is going to be good to go next turn.
Yeah. And what is the play from Davis? It's going to be 3 mana Teferi. Teferi Time Raveler. Going to bounce immediately. Take a draw. I like using Teferi aggressively there.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just cycle, gain a life, probably.
Yep.
If from Ethan's side of things, you could potentially even just ignore it if you wanted to. But, you know, then you're looking at like instant speed Kaya's Wraths maybe, and maybe that's something that you don't want to have to dance around.
How about instant speed Enter the God Eternals?
Oh, that's pretty good too. Making the 4/4 in combat. You remember Beast Attack?
Yes. I'm having like limited flashbacks right now to Beast Attack.
That card is just completely embarrassing by today's standards.
Oh, yeah, but it was a beating back then.
Yeah.
So Ethan's going to have a read of that there, Teferi. Plenty of 1-drops in hand for Ethan, and they're all entering the battlefield. Where are they going? I think we're going face here.
It is the place.
And that represents 6 damage. Light up the stage for the follow-up.
There's
that
5 more.
represents 5 damage just sitting there. Ethan says, show me what you got. Andrew says, not much. Scoops him up. And Ethan takes game 1 very cleanly.
You got to have Kaya's Wrath plus gain some life. That's not happening.
Yeah, I don't know what Andrew's supposed to do there. Powerful looking draw from Ethan Gaieski's mono red aggro deck. Up a game. Gotta love that against Andrew Davis. But We're going to go to sideboards now. They're going to be up on your screen in just a minute. Why don't we go ahead and read them for you, though? I'll start with Andrew Davis. We're looking at 3 Duress, 1 Disdainful Stroke, 1 Cast Down, 1 D-Spark, 2 Cry of the Carnarium. That means Davis is able to go up to the full 4 copies in post-board games. Is that correct? Does he have 2 made? No, I'm sorry.
0.
I'm confusing that with another Esper build we saw. Yeah, only the 2 copies in the sideboard. He does have 1 Narset in the sideboard, 4 Thief of Sanity, 1 God Eternal Kefnet, and 1 Hostage Taker. Jerry, what do you like against the mono red deck?
Duress is it. I mean, it is one of the most impactful cards in the matchup because it takes away the scariest stuff. If the mono red deck is packing like Chandra, Experimental Frenzy, those are the cards you want to go after for sure. Cast Down helps a little bit. Cry of the Carnarium is basically great. I think it's maybe a little stronger on the play than on the draw. On the draw, things like Runaway Steamkin can just get out of range of it. So Davis is definitely going to be happy to have access to the Cry of the Carnariums on the play. And then you could look at things like God Eternal Kefnet and Hostage Taker as blockers. I don't necessarily like Thief of Sanity in this matchup because it's a little small, dies to shock. That's like a horrible tempo exchange. But again, if you look at Davis's deck list, he's got things like Ugin the Ineffable, just like a lot of clunky cards, basically, that you don't necessarily want. So it all depends on how many cards he has to cut and how many things he wants to bring in.
Yeah, I have to say I've liked God Eternal Kefnet in these matchups a lot. I think the sizing is so important. The 4/5 body.
It's huge.
Just brick walls everything out of the mono red deck. Meanwhile, over on Ethan's side, we were looking at a sideboard of 1 Mountain, 4 Lava Coil, 1 Chandra Fire Artisan, 2 Tybalt Rakish Investigator again.
Instigator.
It still says Investigator. 3 Risk Factor, 2 Rekindling Phoenix, and 2 Dire Fleet Daredevil. What do you like here from Ethan's side? I'm assuming you're starting with a Dire Fleet Daredevil, right?
I mean, it's basically everything except for the Lava Coils. Like
Yeah.
the Tybalt shut down the life gain. Chandra is another card advantage thing. Same with Risk Factor. Rekindling Phoenix is really difficult to kill and helps tax the Vraska's Contempts in the matchup, and then Dire Fleet Daredevil being able to piggyback off of their Thought Erasures is also really powerful. And the Mountain you probably want just because your curve is going to go up a decent amount post-board, and Ethan only has 19 Mountains in his main deck.
Right. Yeah, interesting to see how Ethan will adapt here. You're assuming just cutting a lot of the impermanent sources of damage, things like Lightning Strike, Shock, get much worse in post-board games. You really don't want to have those cards in your deck anymore.
I do like Lightning Strike, Shock, Skewer the Critics, and even like Wizard's Lightning are not that great. And Goblin Chain Whirler is pretty medium in the matchup, but it is a base 3/3, so if you are super worried about Cry of the Carnarium, that is definitely one of the better cards that you can turn to, but you have a lot of good options for actually getting around that anyway with like Risk Factor, Tybalt, and just things that have a little bit more staying power.
Right, fair enough. Well, Jerry, if you are like me, you simply cannot get enough Commander action in your life. And of course, that means you go to watch Commander Versus on a weekly basis every Wednesday live at twitch.tv/SCG Tour. You'll see the hosts of our Commander Versus battling live, ready to slug it out with whatever wacky contraptions they come up with every week. They always love to talk to us about their deck ideas, and I like to participate, but I have literally no idea what I'm talking about. They're like, oh yeah, this card, which is some card from like Commander 2016 that I've never even heard of in my life, and I just have no opinions to offer ever.
You got to work on that, I guess.
I guess so. I guess I do have a Commander weak spot.
You know, how can you maintain these relationships, these friendships, if you're not actually putting in the work? Right? Like, they're going out of their way to try and talk to you and engage with you, and you're just brickwalling them. You're not even putting in any effort whatsoever.
Yeah, not a great friend. I will be honest. Really not a great friend. They should probably talk to someone else about Commander who is able to give them more input, is my advice.
Sounds like you're just trying to pass them off onto someone else.
So you're saying you're ready to step up and talk some Commander, right?
Well, I know that I'm not a good friend. You're trying to masquerade as a good friend, but they know. Stephen Green, like, he sees me, we make eye contact, and then I see him just like shake his head and like move along, look for someone else.
Right.
Happens a lot.
Yeah, I believe that. That reaction in general is one I see people often direct towards you.
Yeah.
Well, players are looking at their openers here. Seems we're both on 7, and we're content. We're keeping. Nice look at the hands there with those new hand cams looking over the shoulder. Both players leading on land. No one drop from Ethan.
That's all right. Like I said, slow down a little bit post-board.
Yep. Andrew with the turn to search for Azcanta. The sloppy search for Azcanta. Scribbled out there. There's a nice clean copy for you. Viashino Pyromancer is the answer from Ethan Gaieski. Going to put Davis down to 18. Andrew's going to go ahead and untap. Take a look at the top card, do to search. He likes it. It's going to hand. It's a Thought Erasure. Let's see what Ethan's working with here. Looks like Dire Fleet Daredevil, Chandra Fire Artisan, Skewer the Critics, Lightning Strike, and then Light Up the Stage. Pretty nice hand from Ethan.
Yeah, not bad. Definitely the Chandra is the card that I'm most excited about in this hand. Yeah, absolutely terrifying. Doesn't produce those crazy turns like Experimental Frenzy does, but gives you a decent amount of card advantage while also threatening an ultimate that deals 7.
Right.
So that's huge. That is definitely a must-kill threat from the Esper control side.
It looks like Andrew wants to take the Light Up the Stage, content with the answers in his hand for the other threats.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the best thing that Ethan can do on the next turn. So you possibly mess up Ethan's curve a little bit.
Looks like we're going to bin D-Spark. It's going to go ahead and hit the graveyard there. Interesting whether players want that against the mono-red deck. I could see both sides of the argument, quite frankly.
It's good against Frenzy, Rekindling Phoenix, and basically nothing else.
Chandra.
Sure. So very few targets. They are high impact ones, but it's definitely not a card that you necessarily want in your opening hand.
Yeah. Seems like our Esper players are leaning towards bringing it in this matchup. We've seen it twice now. Interesting to see if that sticks going forward in this format. Well, Ethan going to go ahead and fire off Skewer the Critics, just getting some damage in with Viashino Pyromancer. Davis falling to 13. Going to go ahead and draw that top card of the library. Here's Kefnet.
So big.
God Eternal. Big 4/5 flying body, capable of generating value. If it ever reveals enter the God Eternals, please just pick up your cards, Ethan. You are banished from the feature match area.
Banished from this game at least.
It is a absolute drubbing. Here's a Lightning Strike from Gaieski. That's going to go towards Andrew Davis. He's going to fall to 10. Life total getting low.
And Ethan has 4th land, Chandra Fire Artisan at the ready.
Could also Dire Fleet Daredevil Thought Erasure.
True.
And it looks like that's going to be the play.
Or the D-Spark.
D-Spark too, also an option.
Hoisted by his own petard, perhaps.
Maybe.
Knew it was coming.
Maybe. Let's see how quickly that Kefnet comes back. Here it is. Enter the God Eternals. Going to answer a threat from Ethan. Place a 4/4 body onto the battlefield. Gain 4 life. And mill 4 to Ethan.
Could consider milling yourself because of Chemist's Insight, but it has a little bit of an awkward interaction with Kefnet where Kefnet dies, you bury it, and you certainly don't want to mill yourself at that point.
Right, and that's what Andrew was facing there.
But does certainly interact favorably with Search for Iskanta.
Yeah, graveyard a little bit juiced now. We'll be flipping soon. Nice big 4/4 body ready to block.
It's basically like a 10 for 1.
It's crazy the amount of value that card generates. It's a shame it's just stone dead in so many other matchups.
It is narrow, but it's just so good. And there are going to be weeks where the metagame is just flush with creature decks, whether it's like mid-range decks, white aggro decks, red aggro decks, whatever. And this is just going to be an all-star.
It'll be the best thing you can do, without question. So here is Chandra Fire Artisan. That's going to go ahead and plus, reveal Fanatical Firebrand. Don't think we have a land to deploy that one, so just going to pass the turn back to Davis. Does Davis have an answer for this Chandra? Can attack it. That's incredibly painful.
It is, but it does get it off the battlefield in a couple turns.
And Andrew going to go ahead and bin Kefnet there.
At that point, maybe you just wanted to mill yourself.
Yeah, I think so. Here's Vraska's Contempt. That's going to take care of the Chandra.
That's the perfect answer.
You know, I've seen Andrew now, every time he's cast Enter the God Eternals, he targets his opponent. And I don't know if the last time I saw him cast it, it was also a similar Kefnet situation, or if that's just his default mode.
I don't know. It's kind of awkward because Esper is certainly one of the decks with very, very few win conditions.
Yeah.
So especially in game 1 scenarios, if you mill over, the Ugin, the other Enter the God Eternals, is there like a 6-mana Liliana? No. So it is only Ugin and 2 Enter the God Eternals. Those are the only things that can deal your opponent damage.
Right, but there's also the Teferi win condition as well, obviously.
It is, but it's not necessarily doable against everyone.
Right. Very true. So here we're going to see some removal spells teaming up to take down that 4/4 blocker. Going to go ahead and bin another card from that search. Takes a draw here. And it's 5 mana Teferi. It's going to take another draw. Plays a land. 3 mana available on his turn. Does Andrew Davis have? Passes back to Gaieski. 2 mountains in hand. Reveals them sheepishly and picks up his cards. And we are headed to a game 3. Enter the God Eternals, just too much value. Too much for Ethan Gaieski to overcome.
I think Ethan could have kept playing that game. Like, if you draw something like Risk Factor, your opponent bricks a little bit. Yeah. You're maybe still in it. I agree that he has a very, very low chance of winning, though.
34 minutes left in the round. I'm inclined to keep playing. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I think you may as well take a few more draws. But Ethan had enough. Didn't want to take a look at any more cards here. You see the sideboards coming back up. We know now Ethan likes the Direfleet Daredevils. No surprise there. We know that Andrew Davis likes at least a copy of Despark in post-board games. Those are in his main deck, though. He only has 1 copy in the main deck.
Okay.
So that remained there in the post-board game. That seems fine to me. I think just 1 copy you can get away with.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to draw multiples.
Yeah.
But it does answer the most threatening cards, so you never know. I mean, it is also a 2-mana way to deal with a 4-mana threat, which can be huge. Like, the red deck works super hard to try and sneak through one of those 4-mana cards, typically. Like, there aren't a lot of them present in Ethan's list specifically. He has 3 Frenzy, 1 Chandra, 2 Phoenix, so a little on the low end, I think, compared to most. But yeah, you work super hard to slip one of those through, and then from the Esper side, you get to cast Despark, Hold Open, Absorb, or whatever, and you're just right back in it immediately. So I see the upside. Alternatively, you could just cast Enter the God Eternals and beat them over the head with your 4/4 army. But
sounds pretty nice to me.
Can't have it all the time.
Well, I think Andrew will beg to differ as he tries to do everything here. Keep this mono-red aggro deck under control. Not let Ethan steal a match away here. Looks like Andrew's going back into his deck here. Thinking about some differences on the player draw. Anything you see in particular that stands out to you that changes a lot on the player draw? You mentioned Cry of the Carnarium. I don't think you're ever
not cutting it. You're not cutting it now. It's kind of weird. I think most of the Esper cards are just a lot stronger on the play. Things like Absorb, even Sinister Sabotage. They can be a little bit clunky on the draw, which we saw in Game 1. Andrew had Absorb, but decided to cycle Teferi Time Raveler instead, which I think was legit because he was so far behind, and there's no real reason for Gaieski to actually play into open Absorb mana, you know? So when you're on the draw going into Game 3, it's not a whole lot you can do to make things better.
That makes sense to me.
Being on the draw might be in one of those scenarios where, like, Despark is the card that gets better, right? Because you're far behind, you have to spend mana on your turn reacting to what your opponent does.
You want to play 2 spells as soon as possible. Basically, that's where you turn the corner, yeah.
But it's, like, a lot easier for your opponent to play a 4-drop and resolve it when they're on the play.
All right, very true.
But we saw that he had the Despark in his deck already, so.
Players just shuffling up here, getting ready for this deciding Game 3, trying to be one of the last 2 undefeated players in the tournament. Only 1 player will stand undefeated at the end of day 1.
Unless we get some unintentional draw action.
Yeah.
Or even, I suppose, intentional draw, but I doubt that'll happen. That seems less likely.
Yeah, that seems pretty unlikely.
I don't know, 9 rounds, it's a lot easier now than it used to be. I remember playing in some opens that had like 11 rounds, before they became the 2-day opens.
Right.
But 9 rounds is still a lot. So I don't know. I would kind of be down to just draw and get food in a non-zero amount of scenarios. So.
Well, I think we have all established that your procedures in tournaments are unorthodox, to say the least.
In a good way or bad way?
It depends on what your goals are. If your goals are to win the tournament, oftentimes your procedures are detrimental.
No, think about it, though. If I start 8-0, obviously my deck is great and I'm playing well.
Okay.
I mean, both of those things could just be completely false. But if I'm well rested and well fed going into day 2, you could argue that I have a better shot to succeed in the tournament.
You could, if you love bad arguments. That's definitely something you could put forth. I don't even know.
Look, man, you used to be a lawyer. You used to be a lawyer. You have to love bad arguments.
I can't even engage with this because I know you don't believe what you're saying. There's no part of you that actually thinks this to be true.
Are you saying that I'm not arguing with you in good faith?
That is exactly what I'm saying.
How dare you? You are a bad friend.
What I'm saying.
Yeah, just indulge me. Let me just do my nonsense.
That's not something I have in my soul, unfortunately. I'm not good at indulging people. I think Ethan really likes his hand here because he's really trying to get it in front of the camera.
Yeah, he just wants to show it to everyone.
Yeah. Andrew probably less pleased with the mulligan to 6.
I see some good ones, though.
Yeah, 4 lands on the part of Gaieski, too. Looks like, was that a 1-lander on Andrew's part?
Oh, yeah.
But he drew one off the top, right? I think that came right off the top.
I think he drew another land, but it's another tappy land.
Okay. He is at 18, not 12. That would be very impressive for Viashino Pyromancer.
I mean, we've seen Ethan with some busted draws.
Yeah. Well, here's a light up the stage. It's going to reveal a 1-drop and a risk factor.
That ain't bad.
Yeah. I have a feeling we're going to deploy that 1-drop now.
Risk factor among the best cards that you can possibly have after keeping a 4-land opener.
Absolutely.
Especially after your opponent goes tap land, tap land. Davis is far behind.
Does have the big catch-up card, though, in the form of Cry of the Carnarium, and now we have 2 creatures on the battlefield vulnerable to that card. Going to need some untapped mana, though, if that's going to be the way forward. Here's the draw from Davis. What did he find? Just going to play Thought Erasure. Light up the stage, Dire Fleet Daredevil. Has to fear that 4th mana and Dire Fleet Daredevil, but I think he had double Cry, right?
He did have double Cry, so
Okay.
you're not too worried about Ethan using Daredevil on your Thought Erasure.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing a way forward here for Davis if he can find the land. He does find it. It's tapped, though. If Gaieski plays that Daredevil...
I don't think there's any way that Ethan can do that when he has the risk factor
sitting
exiled.
there. I think I agree with you. So does Ethan. Gonna go ahead and fire that off. Because that represents 2 spells. There's no way you're ever passing on that.
Nah.
Additionally, Magic players, if you'd like to sign up for tomorrow morning's Classics, that is the 9 a.m. Common Classic or 9:30 Standard.
Davis is just going to take all the damage. He's going to fall to 8, I believe.
Subscription stage. Register tonight to get some.
But can now clean up the battlefield with that Cry of the Carnarium. Gaieski, though, going to have some meaningful follow-up here. Here's the draw. It's another mountain, so he's drawn mountains. That's kind of what Davis was hoping for here.
It's tough, though, because it kind of doesn't matter what you draw when you have a risk factor in the graveyard and your opponent's at 8 life.
Yep. It'll become meaningful cards. Here's that Dire Fleet Daredevil. Going to look at a hand of Chemister's Insight, another Cry, Search for Azcanta, and Thought Erasure.
So I don't think you care about the Thought Erasure too much, and the 2 card advantage spells are a little bit too slow. I could see just going after
Cry?
the Cry, even though it only deals with your 2/1. I mean, the difference between your opponent being at 6 and 8 on the next turn when you're going to jumpstart the risk factor is meaningful.
Yeah.
But Ethan says no. Just goes after the Search for Azcanta. Maybe setting himself up for a slightly longer game.
Yeah, I might agree with your approach because if you risk factor here and draw 2-drop creature, you you're not just going to deploy it into Cry of the Carnarium, and you've kind of taken your foot off the gas a little bit. Whereas that search was nowhere near being an effective card anytime soon.
Yeah.
Davis going to take his draw for the turn. Davis, of course, doesn't know. Only 2 mountains in hand. Is going to fire off that Thought Erasure. Ethan says, swing and a miss. Oops, all mountains. Davis going to go ahead, take a peek at the top card of the library.
I mean, if you know your opponent's not going to cast the Cry anyway, why take it?
Well, let's see how it plays in conjunction with this risk factor that we know is going to be cast here.
Yep. This is a bad spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a good option. I have to assume Davis gives him cards. Because I think this is a challenging game to win if you fall to 4.
Well, it's a challenging game to win if you let your opponent draw 3.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
This is Punisher mechanic at its finest.
Right.
Both options are
This is how
heinous
everyone
for you.
envisions these cards
Yes.
when they see them. And they do occasionally work that way. Risk Factor, certainly one of the most powerful Punisher cards we have ever seen.
I love Risk Factor. Probably too much.
Yeah, this and Treasure Map are your 2 vices, I think. So I see Ethan reaching for 3.
Would you call something that's a positive effect on your life a vice?
I don't know. When you find a card that has a positive effect on your life, I will get back to you.
Oh, sick burn.
So Ethan took the cards, found a couple Steamkins, it looks like.
That might be the best possible scenario for Davis.
Yeah, I think so. And now you see the problem with not taking that Cry, right? Because what do you do with those Steamkins in this spot?
Yeah.
You have to slow roll them to some extent. Try and get them out of Cry range, which should be doable, quite frankly. At least one of them.
Yeah, Gaieski has access to all the mana that he could possibly want, so if he draws another spell,
Right.
you get to have a 3/3 left over. The problem there is if you don't make Davis pull the trigger on the Cry this turn, things can potentially be bad for you if you let him have a turn with the Teferi or even the Chemist's Insight.
Yeah.
And Davis kept the card on top last turn with the Surveil from his Thought Erasure. Ooh, that's a nice one.
Yeah, Tybalt, one of the cards found with Risk Factor. It's going to shut off life gain and add some battlefield presence. I think that might have been exactly what Gaieski was looking for, because it's going to force the Cry now.
Yep. That's perfect. And then Davis still has the Chemist's Insight stranded in his hand, doesn't have enough mana to do everything. That rakish investigator.
With his trench coat on, just scouring the streets of whatever plane he's on for clues. Are they all on Ravnica? Is that the thing now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude, you just know nothing about the story.
Yeah,
huh?
I'm kind of a big dum-dum when it comes to the story. I watched that trailer, though, along with everyone else on the planet.
It's not trench coat, but he does have like a bomber jacket on.
Yeah, I'm not up on Ravnican fashion, quite frankly. I don't know exactly what you would call that.
Well, he was originally from Avacyn Restored,
Right.
which was still Innistrad.
Yes. Because Avacyn was let out of the Hell Vault. Should I drop some more lore knowledge on you?
That's it. That's the one thing you know. You were so excited.
Yeah, that might be all I know, quite frankly.
You want to talk about this Enter the God Eternals that is shut off by the investigator?
Yeah, would have been an incredibly impactful card, but Tybalt did some investigating. He says, I think you're about to play Enter the God Eternals, and his investigation was correct. And he shut it down, not letting it happen.
This is the best Tybalt I've ever seen in my life.
It was real good there. That game, I mean, the game swings dramatically if Davis gains 4 life here.
I mean, it's still rough with him having access to a 4/4 also.
Yeah. Yeah, big get. And I think there's 2 cards left in Davis's hand. We know one of them is a Cry. Do we know the second card?
Chemist's Insight.
Chemist's Insight, thank you. Here's an attack from that Tybalt-made token. The fake Footlight Fiend. Looks like it's going to get in for 1 damage here. Is that correct? No, we had a block. So 1 damage is going to head towards Andrew's face.
That's legit. If you think you're just going to get cried this next turn, you might as well send that thing off.
Yep, I like it. Good attack.
And Andrew either blocks it and takes 1 or takes it and takes 1, and it's all the same.
Here come those Steamkins. One of them's going to get a counter. Here's a Pyromancer. That's going to deal 2 damage to Davis. Davis is going to fall to 3. And now you can pass the turn back. Davis has to cry. Can't pass on the cry here. But you retain some battlefield presence. You have Tybalt. You have that Steamkin ready to go. Can Davis find a way out of this situation?
The Tybalt's messing him up so bad. It's awesome.
Yeah. Hugely impactful Tybalt. I've heard mixed reviews on this card. I like it out of mono red. I think in small numbers, I think it's very effective. I mean, this game might just be over in Andrew's favor if that card was not present on the battlefield here. There you see the cry. As we said, forced. I don't think Andrew had any choice about how to play this turn. And now he's at the mercy of the top of Gaieski's deck. It was another Steamkin. Could allow a trade for this first Steamkin. What's the second card? Is the second card Mountain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can play Steamkin, make your original Steamkin a 4/4, offer the trade with the army, which Davis has to take.
Has to take.
And then you minus the Tybalt to put a Devil onto the battlefield, and that, along with the Steamkin, is kind of representing lethal in a weird way.
Yes, it is. And that is going to be the play. Davis taking the draw here.
I would say that Davis's best draw would have been something along the lines of like Moment of Craving, but Tybalt still just there,
Yeah,
shutting it off.
Shuts down so many of the comeback mechanisms in Davis's deck. Has a play. It's Chemist's Insight. Not really what you want to play there.
I mean, if you find a removal spell, Ethan bricks again. You get to live another day, perhaps.
Draws 2, passes the turn
Ooh.
over to Ethan. Ethan draws a hasty creature in the form of Lava Runner. And that is going to do it. Gaieski moving to 8-0, takes down Andrew Davis with mono red aggro against Esper Control. A tight matchup as we head into game 3. Davis with some mulligan issues, not really putting forth his best effort, but I really think that match hinged on that Tybalt. It's complete.